I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Dunn County Board of Supervisors to order. We will begin as always with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if the clerk will call the roll.
Supervisor Johnson. Here. Supervisor Pat Breslin.
Here.
Supervisor Headland. Supervisor Score. Supervisor Steen. Supervisor Zons. Supervisor Gary Bjork. Supervisor Wilsey. Supervisor Quinn. Supervisor Gerasimo is with us online.
Yep.
Supervisor Witzel. Supervisor Kinnear. Supervisor Barrier. Supervisor Calabrese is excused. Supervisor Lyon. Supervisor Vogel. Supervisor Sean Breslin. Supervisor Vandermeulen. Supervisor Robinson.
Here.
Okay, online.
Supervisor Morehouse. Supervisor Hagan. Supervisor Thomas. Supervisor Prochnow. Supervisor Gilbert.
Should be online.
Supervisor Larry Bjork. Supervisor Bauer. Supervisor Leno. Supervisor Hartung. And Chair McCullough.
Here. Okay. All right, approval of the minutes. Supervisor Steen moves. Supervisor Larry Bjork seconds. Any speaking to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Presentation of petitions, memorials, and other communications. I've got nothing. Okay. Public comment. Now would be the time when anyone from the public who wishes to come up and address the board for up to 3 minutes.
There's one member of the public who has decided to sign up to speak. Her name is Angela Wagner she's a Dunn County employee.
Come on up. Name and place of residence and dig in.
Another one. Then it'll turn red. You're good to go.
All right. My name is Angela Wagner, and I'm the Deputy Treasurer for Dunn County. I've been in the position for 7 years. I am here tonight just asking to maybe pause on the salary decision tonight and maybe look at additional information. I feel that we might be a touch high and doing some comparables. I have additional data that I've collected. And then I did receive additional email today that the treasurers are working on. And there's just different ways to look at funding it. And I would say my biggest concern is that we don't have control over who's going to be elected. We don't have the education requirements. We don't have the ability to address concerns per se in the department. I mean, if anybody's familiar with Chippewa County, they can see what they're going through right now. So I guess I would just ask that you maybe pause, maybe look a little bit more in the meeting. If anybody wants to see the documentation I have, I'm not saying they don't deserve a raise. I'm not saying that position shouldn't be paid higher, but I don't think we need to be the leader of the salaries in Wisconsin. I have a few groups, some people propose raising it for what the level is, and then after that, giving them the cost of living comparable to what employees got. I'm not opposed to, at the beginning, if you raise it some, and then at the end, after they've done their 4 years and they have their knowledge, that you look at adding more at the end. I've been through 2 treasurers already. None of them left because of money. They left more because of you have to work during Christmas and you have to work during summer. If anyone could work on changing tax collection to October and April, I would love it. But that is why they left. It's been staffing issues. It's, just getting the right help in there. I'll be training this new one in. Yes, there's probably still stuff out there that we'll have to work on, but I face you taxpayers every day, and I think it will be a struggle once they see these wages. I just feel like it was a struggle this year. And I have concerns because I also do believe, in my opinion, we need to fund schools differently. Now, if you guys can get somebody in Madison to work, that would be perfect. Because we are going to tax people out of their homes. And I'm not saying just the salary is going to do it. I'm just saying, I don't think we need to be the leaders.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
3 minutes, perfect time.
Excellent.
Thanks. Anyone else? Oh,
Hold on. Andrew Bursill, 708 21st Street North. In your packet, you're going to see the compensation schedule for the clerk, the county clerk, the register of deeds, and the treasurer. This was a negotiation that we did and entered into with the county manager as well as HR to look at the compensation schedule set for the terms of starting in 2025 through 2028. We've done a lot of extensive research, and Dunn County has a long history, which you'll see in your documents, of our esteemed sheriff and our delightful clerk of court following in their footsteps, because they are always on a 2-year cycle before the clerk, the register of deeds, and the treasurer are elected. Everyone in Dunn County works really incredibly hard to make sure that the county works and is functioning every day for the citizens of the county. And it's always appreciated when members of the public talk about the importance of taxation. And we really have to think about the residents of Dunn County and their feelings on it. So I just want to point that out. This resolution would not by any means make us a leader in the state as far as compensation. It's following a precedent that was kind of set by our great clerk of court and our wonderful sheriff 2 years ago. So we're just following in that same footstep to make sure that we have the most qualified individuals who will serve the residents of Dunn County. If you have any questions, we can discuss that during the agenda item. Thank you.
and 1 minute. Anyone else? Yes. Come on up.
My name is Brian Westrade, and I'm actually a resident of Eau Claire County, but I'm here on behalf of Congressman Van Orden. I am the field representative for one of the field representatives from out of Eau Claire. I just wanted to let you all know I'm the board, and hopefully you received already, the chairman already received, but the community project funding opened up yesterday. We've got the application now. That is congressionally directed funding. It used to be called earmarks, and then we decided that's a bad word, so now it's called community project funding. Please let your administrator know, let your chairman know. If you have projects, they have to be not for profit. The more shovel ready they are, the more likely it is that they may be chosen. There's only a limited number of projects that can be put forth by every congressional district. But please, if you have projects in your community, whether it's a new firehouse or dredging of a lake, that sort of thing, that is kind of shovel ready, where you've done the legwork, the engineering study has been done, and it's just literally a matter of you need the money. Please contact one of your leaders here. They can get you a copy of that application. See me at some point. I can get you my card. We can get you a copy. But we just strongly encourage folks. This is kind of the one area where the congressman's office is able to press a button and have some community or have some directed funds go into a community project. So just wanted to share that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Anyone else who wants to come up and offer us a chance at funding, we're open to that. Thanks. Okay. Anyone else for public comment? Only once. Okay. Closing public comment. Appointments. You have a sheet in front of you. I don't think any of these need to vote ones, so just to be aware. That's it for appointments this time. Report of the county manager, Chris.
Good evening. Before I introduce guests to two different presentations for this evening. I wanted to give you a couple of updates on 3 items. One, Governor Evers, or the state, and well, Governor Evers has announced, but the state has received federal disaster declaration for the lack of snow in the northern half of the state. So I'm just going to read to you: impacted businesses in counties with a drought declaration can apply for a U.S. SBA Economic Impact Disaster Loan. Under that program, businesses can borrow up to $2 million to cover their actual losses. Businesses pay no interest on the loan for the first year and the maximum rate of 4% for the rest of the loan period. To take advantage of the program, businesses must apply by application deadline for their county, and our county deadline is May 6th. So I tell you that just because you may be speaking to some of your constituents in your districts who might be impacted, and it's a resource that's available to them. Secondly, I just wanted to give you a brief update. You're aware, because we had asked to do some out-of-class payments for our planning for our new financial ERP system. I wanted to let you know that's in full swing. We have a steering committee. We have some work groups that we call pit crews that are all in place. They've begun to meet. They've begun to plan. Our goal is to do an RFP for the purchase of that project mid-year this year, and with an implementation date of July of 2025. So it's a bit of an ambitious timeline, but we think that we can accomplish that. And then lastly, if you paid attention to your county board calendar, we typically have done a capital improvement planning workshop at the end of, the last few years have done it at the end of March. However, there's 2 issues with that. The first is the last Saturday in March is Easter weekend, so that probably won't be convenient for some people. And secondly, because it's an election year, the people who would hear the presentation for capital improvements will not be the same people who will necessarily make the decision about approving those projects at the what would have been the April meeting. So we are proposing, and I will talk to the executive committee when we meet in early March, but we are proposing moving that workshop to either the last weekend in April, April 27th, or the first weekend in May, May 4th, and doing the capital improvement with the newly seated board at that point in time, and then moving forward with approval of that plan in May at the May County Board meeting. So just so you know, you can take that March date off of your calendars, and I will work with the exec committee for us to set a new date at the end of April or the first part of May. Any questions about that? All right, that being said, we're going to hear a brief update this evening from Dylan Stickney. Dylan has been our main go-to contact with the Elk Creek Solar Project, and he is going to do just a brief update of where things are at with that project, and then be available for any questions that you might have.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Chris. I hope everybody can hear me here. Great. Doing the work for me. Yes, I'm Dylan Stickney from Elk Creek Solar Project with TED Renewables. Thank you so much, supervisors, for allowing me just a few minutes here, give some exciting updates about where this project stands. If you remember, we were in Dunn County just about a year ago, introducing this project, or a little more than a year ago, and back again just about a year ago for a kind of a mid-stage update. But pleasure to speak with you again, and excited to share some updates. So just as a refresher on the next slide here, Elk Creek Solar, for those of you that may not know, is a sorry, just on, yeah, there we go. Elk Creek Solar is a 300 megawatt solar project with a 76 megawatt integrated battery storage capability. That's located on approximately 2,000 acres of private land down in Springbrook. As you can see, that northerly road there is County Road E. So all south of County Road E. This project we've been working on for a little while now. Tentative construction schedule, exciting update, as you'll see on the fact sheet in front of you, is as early as the end of this year. You might see just the beginning of some construction activities, some site preparation work. Most of the construction work, we hope, will be conducted in all of next year and then into the following, where we're hopeful to be commercialized and operational in the year 2026. So this is the same map that was on it was on our website, has been on our website for a long time, was put on display at our public open house. Still the same site, and we continue to refine and advance our design from here. So I want to keep this really, really brief. On the next slide, one of the most material and exciting updates is that just last year, the Wisconsin state budget increased utility aid for communities with generating facilities using alternative energy sources. So really exciting. Elk Creek Solar certainly qualifies as an alternative energy source, and that increase is just about 25% in addition to what it was before. So in the gray in this table, you'll see our estimate was $700,000 annual payment to Dunn County from utility shared revenue payments coming from the state of Wisconsin, $24.5 million over the next 35 years. Those numbers have increased to more than $900,000 a year and more than $32 million over the next 35 years just for Dunn County. You'll see that the town of Springbrook will see a similar increase. Really exciting. Everybody likes more municipal revenue and higher payments coming into the county as a result of new developments. We're certainly pleased and excited to see this just sharing more benefit for the local community here. So the second update that I did want to share, and this is a few months old now, but certainly exciting for us, that just in October last fall, the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin formally issued a certificate approval for Elk Creek Solar. The three commissioners from the Public Service Commission, they held a discussion of record in September, at which all three unanimously voted to approve this project. Had some wonderful remarks to say about our team and how we've carried out specifically our engagement and interaction and information sharing with the community. The link here is a documented record of that discussion of record and that hearing. Certainly urge you to take a look and just hear some of the remarks and how they thought about it, how they talked through their approval, their vote, and just like any certificate approval that comes from the Public Service Commission for a project like this, there were a number of conditions included. Conditions for, essentially requirements for our project to meet if we're going to continue and advance with constructing and operating this project. Two of those conditions I wanted to just highlight that you'll see on the screen here. The first being that our project implement a landscape screening plan, working in coordination with interested non-participating landowners in an effort to reduce visual impact from residences around our project area. We understand this is certainly a residential area, and this is something that we had been working on and had intended to include in our project right from the start. So we put on display at our open house, I guess that was December of 2022, just an example of what landscape screening and what that palette could look like. We've continued to work on that. We've had numerous discussions with non-participating landowners, just like this condition, just like it requires, and have received a good deal of feedback from those landowners, from those residents, incorporated those into our landscape screening plan, and certainly welcome all that communication. That's really been the goal here, is to welcome and embrace as much communication with folks throughout the community, especially those that are residents of Springbrook and in and around our project area. Now, the second condition you'll see here, another one that we're excited about, another one that certainly makes a lot of sense from our mind, is that certainly, exposed soil, areas of exposed soil should be vegetated as soon as possible, seeded with a cover crop and or a native seed mix to minimize erosion potential, prevent establishment of invasive species. Always something that is heavily focused on and something that developers like us, every project that we work on, certainly this one, as stewards of this land and the landowners that we're working with, we've gone as far as to implement a a pollinator-friendly seed mix. Again, in front of you, you should see an outline of a selection of that seed mix, maybe even a seed packet. I think my wonderful colleague Anna may have passed out. This is something that we're very excited about, something that we see that can bring a lot of benefits to not just our project, but the local community, the land itself, and the surrounding landowners too. So those are just two of many conditions included in that certificate approval. All of these application documents, all of the review documents, all of the comments that have come in for this project are and continue to be publicly available on the PSC website. You can find them at that link at the bottom or just by searching that docket number on the Public Service Commission website. So lastly, it's been really a pleasure for me to be a part of this project, for our company, for our team to develop the Elk Creek Solar Project in Dunn County. We've done everything that we possibly could and then some to try and position this project to be a good corporate citizen for a long time to come. So we're committed to this long-term relationship with all of you supervisors, with Dunn County, the town of Springbrook, and the greater community, really through these three kind of main categories of transparent communication, a focus on education, and continued partnerships and donations throughout the community. Really, all three of these areas have afforded me the opportunity to meet and work with many of you and many of your neighbors out there in Dunn County. It's been a true pleasure of mine. So we're far from done. On the next slide here, there's a lot of work for us to do to get this thing over the finish line and construct it and really kind of break ground at the end of this year, hopefully. We do still, of course, maintain our local office down on Main Street in Menominee. Anna is a fantastic asset for the Elk Creek Solar Project, and I encourage any of you to reach out to her for more information or more collateral. We've got a whole wealth of resources down at our office there. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me, and we're certainly excited to continue working on this great project. Love to hear any questions, or like I said, certainly happy to have individual conversations if you'd like to reach out to me after this.
We have a question. Supervisor Larry Bjork.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dylan, this entire project falls within my supervisor district in the town of Springbrook. And so I hear a lot from my neighbors about the project. But first of all, I wanted to congratulate you on picking Anna as a rep. I mean, she's been right here with information. I've seen her at the Watershed Conference. I've seen her at the Dunn County Fair. I've seen her at the Town Hall. And, it's hard to be crabby around her, but I sometimes work through that. You're in my neighborhood. My beef cows right now are sleeping on corn stalks that came off of one of your fields. And I bought from my neighbor. We had a shared agreement. And so, I mean, it impacts me in a little way. I don't see it across the road from me. But if I would travel east on E, which is also the Yellowstone Trail, you ought to look that up. Find out about the Yellowstone Trail, because it's a big historic highway that's now a county road. And so my neighbors, were expecting that work was going to be done next year. And now they're saying that they had the okay to put crops in for another year, starting next year. I don't know if that's a change in the plan or what it might be. I guess people that talk to me about it, my neighbors and friends, first of all, I certainly can't criticize my neighbors for receiving a good deal on using their land. I mean, there was a time when I was farming full time that I'd have rented it to you for $1 an acre just so that I could keep it and it didn't go someplace else. So I can't complain about it, but I can't be happy about it. And I want you to work on a figure. okay? We got the pollinator mixes, was real nice. And I see the pictures of the pollinators, by the solar panels. I think it'd be interesting for you and TED Energies to find out an application rate of pollinators and what it would cost to plant pollinators, in the entire project. Because the massiveness of the project, I think, is kind of lost in the maps. When you look at the fields, it just slaps you up the side of the head that this is a dramatic change in my neighborhood. And I wish you well, but I wish you were using maybe American-made. I keep hearing these are China-made solar panels. I keep hearing that, well, your money's going to go away if there's a change in who runs the government in Washington, D.C. So, I welcome you as a neighbor, but it makes me sad that I'm going to be seeing solar panels instead of crops and livestock and farming stuff that I've seen there for my entire life.
Thank you, Supervisor Bjork. Anyone else? All right, on to the next item. That's the ARPA groundwater sampling report. Chris, do you want to?
Thanks, Dylan. You
Thank you
probably
very
don't want
much.
to for the rest of our meeting.
Thank y'all. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Dylan.
All right, we will continue with the long-awaited results of the private well testing that were completed last year. And I would introduce Heather Wood and I thought you were Dan. I didn't see him go back there. Like, why is Dan here? And Chase Cummings from Land and Water Conservation, who will present this interesting data to you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you again for the opportunity to present to you this evening on this groundwater monitoring report and activity that we undertook in 2023. Back in March of 2022, we were directed to undertake this program to conduct a private well monitoring project within the entire county. It was a quite ambitious project with a goal of 1,000 samples to be collected with a budget of around $175,000. We are blessed with incredible staff here in Dunn County. One is right behind me and is going to do a lot of presenting tonight because this was a major project that we undertook. And it was with confidence that I could turn it over to Heather Wood to create a project that was successful. While she didn't do it all by herself, we had some incredible partners as well. I would like to mention Dunn County Public Health and particularly the Healthy Environment Action Team, or HEAT. Without them, this project probably wouldn't be as successful as it was as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Heather to discuss the results with you, some of the details of the program. I'll wrap up with a conclusion, and then I will be happy to answer any questions pertaining to the data. In your packet, you should see the report. So if you had a chance to read through that, we'll be happy to try to answer any questions that are pertained in there. So with that, I'll turn it over to Heather for the results.
I'm a little shorter than you are. All right, so I'm Heather Wood. I'm the Water Resources Specialist here in Dunn County Land and Water. And this is not going to be by any means a comprehensive review of the whole report. There's a copy in there, and there are some things that were just tested for and kind of flew under our radar. So this is just gonna be a quick highlight reel of what we found. If I can get my stuff, there it is. So this is just a quick rundown of the project as a whole. I just want to start out by reminding folks of we had two main goals going into this project. The first one was just to get out there, interact with the community, and have this be a resource for folks to learn about their groundwater, learn what's going on, and get some testing results out there. And then it also acted as a spot to give us a good quality controlled point in time data set. And by quality controlled, what I mean is that we're not getting samples that have been accidentally run through filtration or anything like that. So we can kind of take a look at it from setting a baseline sort of view. We don't have to worry about different SKUs coming into play from unknown variables. So we had a total of 1,013 people sign up. By the time we actually got around to doing the collections, we ended up collecting 995 samples total. The first 22 were actually from each of the unincorporated townships in Dunn County. Most of them we did their town halls, but 5 of them we couldn't, just because 3 of them don't have wells, and 2 of them are actually on municipal systems, which are treated and tested regularly, so it wouldn't really give us much information to begin with. That was done in January, and then the biggest part of it, the bulk of this study, was the 973 samples that we did last summer. Unsurprisingly, the 3 most populous townships gave us the most amount of samples, but we actually got a really good spread across the county. Peru is a really great example of that, with that being the least populated township, but they still had 27 signups, which is a little over 10% of their population. So that was pretty impressive. So the overall sampling, we did the town halls, we did it in 2 phases, mostly for my own sanity. The town hall part was done in January of 2023. It was done over 2 days. And in that part, we did the comprehensive homeowners package, which had the nitrates, hardness, metals, and all of that that the private homeowners got. But we also tested for PFAS in that sampling. It was one of those things where there was a lot of communication from the community that they wanted to know more about PFAS in Dunn County, but the cost benefit ended up working out that we wanted to just start out with the townships and see what came from that on the front end. And then, like Chase mentioned, we were out in the summer, and we, being the collective of land and water conservation planners, the Dunn County Alliance of Conservation Groups gives us money for an intern, and our intern was out collecting samples. I was out collecting samples. So it was a lot of samples collected in a mostly 6-week time period. The overall cost of the project actually came in under what we had budgeted, and so we're going to, as we had expected to, if that happened, roll this into a project for this year to kind of get some more samples out there. The comprehensive homeowners package, we went through UW-Stevens Point. That came in under what was originally budgeted, partially because we didn't do a bacteria screen, and so they took $10 off per test, which really adds up when you're budgeting for 1,000 tests. And they also gave us the cheaper rate because they actually raised their prices in the middle of the project, and they just let us keep the cheaper rate throughout the whole of the project. The PFAS testing also came in under budget, and that was because we had budgeted for what was called field blank testing, and anything that tested positive, they would have to run a field blank to make sure that it wasn't contaminated by me when I was collecting the sample. So the ones that didn't test positive didn't have to get their field blanks run. So that saved $255 per sample. And then we had a little over 1,000 staff hours, which really isn't all that bad because this includes not just the sampling end of things, but also my time planning and reporting and getting all of the outreach in every aspect of this project. So now we can kind of go into some of the results. The PFAS sampling, it was a little bit surprising, but also not. Most of the town halls in Dunn County did test positive. It was 14 of the 22 samples that we took tested positive for some detectable level of PFAS compounds. We went through the Wisconsin State Lab of Hygiene for this, and they tested for 33 different compounds, 18 of which actually have health standards set by the Department of Health and Human Services here at the state. But thankfully, while they were present, none of them were above any established health standards currently, and they were also below the significantly lower proposed limit that's hanging out at the EPA level right now. So silver linings, the more we look into this, the more we're finding that PFAS are unfortunately fairly ubiquitous. They're kind of everywhere. So it's unfortunate, but it's definitely something that could use more study before we can really make any sweeping conclusions. Arsenic, in the report, I mentioned that we actually had more hits for arsenic, more detectable hits for arsenic than we did exceedances of nitrate. And this map here, I want to heavily emphasize, this is not a forecasting map. This is not saying that if you're in this area, you're going to test high for arsenic. This is just meant to illustrate the general pattern from this one single point in time data. And it's kind of contrary to what we would have expected. There's models that suggest that some of the bedrock geology in the northeastern part of the county should have had some levels of detectable nitrate or arsenic, but we didn't. And so this is another one of those things that we can't really make any broad sweeping conclusions on unless we get more data, unfortunately. But it was interesting and a little disconcerting, but at the same time, this kind of plays back to the education end of this program. A lot of people didn't know they had arsenic, and now they do. And we got them involved with some state programs to hopefully get some financial assistance to get that treated for in their water. Nitrates, at the town level, we can look at averages, and this is just an overview of what the averages are. The established health standard for nitrates is 10 milligrams per liter, and that is anything below that is considered safe to drink. Anything above that, the health impacts tend to be more long-term in adults, but people worry about it for infants and young children, and it's just not safe. We do have on the county website, Land Information has created a really great tool that folks can use that can actually zoom into this data and all of the data we have, which goes all the way back to 1985, down to the section level. So the highest we had was 40, and that was not good, but now we knows. So hopefully they were able to get in touch with some of the resources available to get that treated. But this goes back to the education, and we can't tell people what to do now that they know that they have a problem. So, and then this is the way that I prefer to look at nitrates. Natural systems don't really listen to political boundaries. And so this kind of more accurately conveys, again, much like arsenic, this is the general patterns that we found in this one point in time data set. And it wasn't entirely surprising. Down in that southeastern part of the county, we have a lot of those really sandy, loose soils, heavy, intensive, agricultural uses. And so it wasn't terribly surprising, but it's still good to be able to get a better bead on where we're at right now. Like the disclaimers say, this is just one model. This is one of the models that I like because it factors in a lot more uncertainty than others. But there's a million different ways we can look at it. So this is not a forecast. This is not saying that everybody down in Springbrook is going to have awful water. It's just the general pattern that we came to from this particular study. So then next steps, like I mentioned in the beginning, we do have some leftover funding. And so we'll be looking to go out and do some more sampling. Right now, I'm working with the Eau Claire City County Public Health Department, and we're looking to collect 240 samples. 22 of those are going to be the resampling of the town halls and the proxies that we did last January. And we're kind of scaling back what we're testing for. We're just going to do nitrates and metals. Arsenic falls into the metals, and like I said, it was kind of weird. So we want to get a little bit more data on that. We have online signups are available now. That's what the QR code is for. So, shameless plug if anybody wants to sign up. Otherwise, people can contact me directly. And then from this year forward or beyond, it really depends on funding. I have a proposal into the EPA to try and get some more funding. And if we get it, great. We'll be working probably with Eau Claire City County next year. But until I know about that, the funding is kind of up in the air. So if we get money, we'll do more testing. And if we don't, then we won't.
All right, thanks, Heather. Yeah, just to wrap up, certainly the report has a much more information in it. If there's other information you'd like to discuss, we'd be happy to try to answer some questions. But just a reminder, and Heather mentioned this, but a reminder of what the goals of the project were. I want to be careful that we don't use this data in a way that is not intended for, in the sense that this is a point, Heather mentioned, this is a point in time data. We were in June, July, collecting a sample from a unique well. And the intention of that was to provide information and education for those landowners, while at the same time trying to get a general point in time and some additional data for us as a whole. Each well is unique. The well construction of that is unique. Casing depth is different. Depth to bed, depth to water table is different. depth of bedrock is different. Land use around those wells are different. So while the data is important, and it's important for us to look at long-term trends, to really draw specific conclusions on sources and reasons for why we have some of this contamination, really takes an in-depth look on each individual well, which obviously is a tremendous undertaking, but certainly one, as landowners want to pursue it, we would try to entertain and assist as much as possible. But in general, as we move forward, again, collecting this data, providing it to the public for information, maybe it can help facilitate conversation around land use in the future. But I want to make sure that the goals of this project was primarily for education and a sense of trend analysis to begin that trend analysis for the county. Again, I mentioned before, we couldn't do this without staff. We also had an intern that stuck a lot of time into this. And again, this is just one component, but I definitely think it was a project worthwhile, and would, I guess, entertain and ask for your support to continue this in the future when the opportunity arises. With that, any questions that you have, we'd be happy
I've
to
got
try
a
to
couple
answer.
sets. First Supervisor Lenow and then Supervisor Larry Bjork.
Yes, the main question I have is that being a rep for the southern part of the county, and my own personal well was tested and was way out of limits at this particular time. I noticed as I was reading the report that there is a grant available for upgrading your water system, i.e. well, filter system, that type of thing. I just wanted to make sure that that those funds are available for folks in our territory. And because we're probably all going to be dealing with it one way or another. And then with the additional testing that's going to be done in that area, with wells that are well above the norm, will they be routinely tested, or is that something that has to be requested by the homeowner?
So to answer your first question, included in the mailing for the results was some information about that well compensation program that you mentioned. That's actually administered through the state of Wisconsin as part of the DNR's well compensation program. They greatly expanded the eligibility for it with ARPA funding. And right now, at first, when we were first doing this project, our local private water supply specialist contacted us and said, hey, tell people about this. We are not getting usage. And then I contacted him as I was writing this report in December, and he said, it's going to be out before we expected it to be. So where it's at right now, I'm really not sure. I know that we did actually, I communicated with him, and we had a few people from this program sign up for that particular program. A couple people for nitrates and at least one for arsenic. It was either arsenic or manganese. He didn't specify which, but it was a metal for treatment. So people in this county are eligible. Anybody in the state of Wisconsin that has contaminated water is eligible for it. You need to have 2 certified lab tests showing that you're above the established health standard for whatever parameter, be it nitrates or metals, at least 2 weeks apart. And then there's certain income thresholds and whatnot, but his contact info was on there because he can help people through that, because that's his job, is to help people through that whole application process. And then to address your question about repeat testing of high wells, that's really up to the landowner. When we have funding, if they want to sign up for this for our retesting program, I welcome that. And we would love to start getting some long-term trend sites. But once we're out of funding at the land and water end of things, it really is up to the landowner whether or not they want to. Of course, the folks here in public health have kits on hand for a couple of different labs. I think they have some for the CTL lab up in Colfax, as well as the Eau Claire City County Public Health Department. So they could get nitrates and metals and whatnot. But it's on the landowner at that point for determining what they want to test for, as well as covering the cost for testing, unless we manage to find funds elsewhere.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Larry Bjork.
My question goes to your funding with ARPA funds that Supervisor Quinn made the motion at the time, and I think it was almost 194,000 or better. So that project has been completed, and you have your results, why wouldn't the balance of that money go back into the county for other projects? Because it was, I believe it was ARPA money at the time to do a specific project.
I guess it was our understanding at the time that it's $175,000 that was allocated, that based on our estimates for the year, that was what we thought the project would cost. And it was our understanding at the time that if any funds remained based on that, that we could carry them into this next year in order to pursue continued testing to complete the whole project based on the amount that was allocated. If that was inaccurate, I would entertain some conversation.
I believe that's the way it was budgeted. So to reallocate would require a change in the budget.
Ken?
It was budgeted to do the project and then roll over for further testing if they needed it. So in order for it to return for the general fund for something else, we would need to re-budget it. And that would be an action of the whole board.
Well, if you can find the minutes of the meeting, I thought it was 190,000 and I thought it was for a specific project, but I could be wrong.
Supervisor Garasimo. You're
Unmute
muted.
myself. Thank you.
There you are.
Yeah, thanks. Fascinating report. Thanks so much. We had our water tested here and at the town hall, and we found the results really compelling and a little disconcerting. I think I just wanted to make sure I understood correctly that this is the beginning of a trend tracking effort, that this particular thing has not been done before, this type of testing for nitrates, arsenic, PFAS, and others. So we now have a baseline from which we can do repeated testing. Is that correct, that this is the first baseline testing of this?
That is correct. And we do have other data that's available. Heather mentioned on the county website, we have an interactive well water viewer that has older data that could have been submitted, just private citizens or other public lab related data.
Yeah.
But correct, in the purpose of this project was in a way to start a baseline, a point in time, and then as resources become available, depending on the length of time in between, to continue to come back and test again, particularly related to the townships and the town halls. Those were what we felt was nice opportunities for retesting in the future. Because they are somewhat stagnant as far as there's not landowner changes and things like that. And we can eventually get back to them in due time for, I guess, supporting that trend analysis.
That's great. Thank you. And I did notice there's a Wisconsin Groundwater Coordinating Council report to the legislator from 2023, which has some pretty interesting information about nitrates and how widespread those effects are and their effect on human health and so forth. It just also occurred to me, I guess, as a note of interest that a lot of the contamination really has occurred just since the 1960s. So while we're tracking it now, it's the presence of it. A lot of the stuff presumably wasn't there at all prior to what we now consider to be conventional agriculture. I'm sure there was some of it, but it's the incredibly dramatic rise in the presence of these chemicals, many of which are persistent, is disconcerting. I think from a human health perspective is something that's really important that we continue to track, because the impact is we really well known on infants and pregnant moms and things, but it's really affecting everybody. I think colon cancers and other problems that are emerging as a result of it. So I really appreciate the effort. I saw a lot of folks out in the field doing the work. They were great and very patient with those of us who weren't home when we were supposed to be. But I'm really looking forward to continuing to unpack the data on this topic. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Supervisor Gerasimo. I've got three more for you, starting with Supervisor Quinn.
Just a reminder that several years ago, the county formed a water quality task force that was composed of citizens from different areas of the community and some county board members. And that task force met for about a year. And one of the main recommendations out of it was that we do regular water quality testing, primarily because a majority of the people in our county get their drinking water from wells, private wells. And but the problem was there's no money for that. And I would note that these funds from ARPA were available. That's what allowed us to propose this baseline and the additional testing. We also have in our legislative agenda a recommendation to the state that they provide a program that provides counties with funding to do regular updates like this one. So it's been part of our policy for quite a while.
Thank you, Supervisor Quinn. Supervisor Gary Bjork.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here about 5 or 6 years ago, we had a well monitoring. I don't know if that was the depth down to water, but there were like a monitor on the wells. So what, and I haven't heard much about that lately. Is that still going on or not?
Yep. Those would be the well intel sensors, and they're like you said, they're sonar detectors. We've got 6 of them around the county, and that's another thing that I administer. It's just continuously checking. I want to say they take readings every half hour or so, and it's just continually uploading data. I haven't really been able to sit down and unpack a lot of that data, but the over.
Not for quality.
Yeah, it's not for quality, it's for quantity. There's, the general trends of when it's dry, they kind of go down, and when it's not, it kind of bounces back. But there's not really been anything that's really stuck out in an initial kind of desktop review of that data, but we are still collecting it.
Thank you, Supervisor Bjork. Supervisor Lyon.
Thank you. Ours was one of the 19 wells that were tested in the city of Menominee. We're out on Meadow Hill Drive, so we don't have city water and sewer. And I have to say that the packet that was provided with the results was very comprehensive and very, very helpful. My question is, if someone is selling their land and they've had their well tested, we didn't have anything that was of concern, but if somebody has something of concern, is that something that's considered that needs to be disclosed to a potential buyer?
Do you have expertise on that?
I can't speak to the details of it right now, but typically anytime a well has work done on it, so when you enter that well in some way from maintenance or drilling a new well, there's a requirement now that it must be tested for bacteria, nitrate, and I believe arsenic. In the sense of just land and real estate, I'm not certain that there's a requirement on that, other than it's tending to become a common practice. So I can't, I guess, specifically give you an exact answer on it.
Thank you, Supervisor Lyon. Anyone else? Supervisor Steen.
Yes. On your monitor, when you're trying to find the depth of the water, correct? That's what your monitors do. Here's my question. Municipalities have to measure and track their rate of discharge, how it comes back up. Is anybody tracking what the pivots that are out in the country, who administers that?
You're referring to like the high capacity irrigation wells?
Correct.
Nobody.
Well, actually, I mean, Department of Natural Resources has a permit that's held for those, and they have reporting that's as a part of that. The sensors that we have on and typically they're private wells or potentially a town hall well, is looking at, the depth of that water table. And Heather mentioned it earlier, when we get into a dry spell, a drought situation, that water table is going to drop. And as a result, it also means that high capacity wells tend to be used more. So that change in water table elevation is exponential. So we're really just trying to monitor, the change in that water table and how it recharges. But from an actual operation and oversight of high cap wells, the Department of Natural Resources oversees that. I'm not certain as to the frequency of any follow-up on that, but certainly as part of a permit that they're required to, I guess, disclose and report on what the flow rate is for that well.
Just as a follow-up there, do you have any information or could you get the information? My question would be, do municipalities have the right of way, so to speak, regarding water over a private entity or not?
You're in respect to use of water?
Let's
or-
just say that for whatever reason, the village of Colfax wells ran dry, but the irrigators around the community were still going. Does the municipality have the right what governs that, if anything?
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything that would that would give preference or priority on a particular well. It would certainly be part of the permit process when they evaluate permitting new wells, cumulative effect, that sort of thing. But I'm not aware of, if there was oversight, it would typically be with Department of Natural Resources. But I'm not aware of there being a preference or priority on any particular well.
Thank you.
I will get back to you in just 1 second, Supervisor Gary Bjork. Is there anyone else? Okay, second speaking, so I had to check.
That's okay. Thank you. I could answer a couple of those questions because I got like your 2 high cap wells for irrigation. And I got to report that every year of how many hours they're going and how many gallons per hour. So the state knows exactly every well, how much that I am pumping out. Plus there is a fee, just reporting fee that I got to do every year. And like one of my wells is probably a mile from the village of Colfax. And when I dug it, there were certain like restrictions that I couldn't go past the bedrock, whatever. And because there's also a trout stream, 18-mile creek. So anytime that you're close to a village or close to a trout stream, they put limitations of where that well could be and et cetera. So, but it's all done by the, DNR. They come out and inspect it. And, so thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bjork. Very helpful. Anyone else? Okay, looks like you are off the hook.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Great report. Chris needs her. Just a sec, we're working on it. There we go.
All right. Last tiny piece of my report. You had in your packet purchase orders over $40,000. Beata did a really nice job of giving you a little summary along with the vendor of what those purchases were for. Are there any questions about those? No?
Supervisor Leno.
Yeah, just let me get there. Hang on 1 second, if you would, please. Yeah, here it is. Where was that? Oh yeah, just a second from the bottom. Associated Trust Company, 45,700. 2022 general obligation notes. I'm assuming that's just an interest payment.
Yes. Beata's nodding her head, yes.
All right. Thank you very much. That's all I needed.
Supervisor Wilsey.
I just seen under the highway department that the vendor is Napleton Auto Works. Do you know why we're not buying within the county and buying somewhere from out of the county on that?
I think Dustin can probably tell us.
Yeah, typically it's because of the competitive bidding process. And we are required to take the lowest available bid that meets the spec. But
I guess, was that a state contract though? It was a state purchase contract.
So am I correct on that one, Dustin?
So we either have to take, if you put it out for bid and it's local people are able to bid locally or others, but also if we purchase from the state purchase contract, then you take whatever vendor is part of that contract.
Yeah, statutory requirement.
All right, if not, that concludes my report.
All right. Reports of departments, libraries, come on up.
button on the right-hand side. Yep, so it turns red. Oh, when it turns, you push it, oh, you can move in. And then you can lift it up. You can just put it up. You can put it up the podium. It'll turn red in just a second. And then you can see.
Andrew, which button to? Okay. I should know that anyway. All right.
In the PowerPoint? Do we have a PowerPoint?
I don't think we received one.
No.
Oh.
We were looking for one shortly before the meeting and didn't have one at that point.
I mean, I could, if it's all right with everyone else.
Yeah, we can talk without the PowerPoint, Andrew. That's okay.
Yeah, probably start without it at least.
All right, well, hello, we are the Dunn County Library Directors. My name is Callie Anderson. I am the director of the Boyceville Public Library. And I just wanted to take a couple minutes tonight to talk about what we've been up to lately and what we are looking forward to in the future. 2023 was a really remarkable year for us. Our numbers in all areas from circulation to programming to attendance saw a very sizable increase. Overall attendance was up 36% from 2022, and program attendance saw a 23% increase. Our total circulation number was 23,772, which is very good for us. And with this number, we are finally back to pre-pandemic numbers, which is very exciting. And we added over 900 books, movies, video games, magazines, and kits to our collection. This next slide, I had pictures, so you'll just have to imagine it.
Give me 2 seconds. Dan, I sent it to you.
So I just want to talk a little bit about our programming. We had 83 programs in 2023. I included 5 photos. One of them was from Touch a Truck Day, which we did over the summer. And we had officers from the Dunn County Sheriff's Department there and Boyceville Ambulance and Fire Departments. The kids had a blast. They loved touching all the vehicles and going inside and messing with all the buttons. So it was super fun. And I also had another very cute picture of puppies from when we had puppies at story time a couple weeks ago. So just imagine a bunch of chocolate labs. And what are we looking forward to in the future? That is, of course, our building project. We have been working very closely with River Architects. They are a firm based in La Crosse, and they put together some really beautiful preliminary design studies. Again, they were included in the PowerPoint, so unfortunately, I'm just gonna have to kind of imagine it.
We should have it here in a minute.
Okay, good. Yep, so you can take a look. I had a floor plan and then also a bird's eye view of how the building will hopefully look on Main Street. Right now, the phase that we are in is just collecting as much community feedback as possible. We want to hold discussions in schools and churches and really any place that will have us, and also look at doing focus groups and hopefully an open house in the next month or two. But like I said, that's all just to gather as much feedback as possible. And we really just want to make sure that this building serves our community well. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening with us. And now I think I will pass it to Lisa.
Great. Well, like Boyceville, Colfax Public Library also saw increases in library visits, program attendance, and circulation in 2023. We were very pleased to find in the data that adult readership went up 9% this year. Children's books remain our #1 checkout at Colfax, but more adults came in on a regular basis looking for books. Many of our newest library patrons are young, in their 20s and 30s. This may be part of a national trend that bodes well for libraries. Young adults are easy to communicate with on social media and interested in saving money. Libraries are easy to promote as a resource for people looking to save money, as our items are shared by the community. And when people enter our building, we have an opportunity to form trusting, positive relationships with them and let them know about other community resources and even programs that Dunn County offers. Young adult readers like the convenience of ebooks, but often prefer physical books when they have time to stop by and pick them up. Many use both kinds of media. Our ebook readership went down slightly, but e-audiobook readership went up by a corresponding amount. So our electronic library users are learning the convenience of listening to books as they drive, exercise, or work around the house. Overall, electronic book usage, therefore, remains steady. It was the physical book usage that increased. In 2023, book club participation at Colfax more than doubled. Also, program attendance went up 35%, and library visits are up 55% from the previous year. More people are coming through our doors than I've ever seen in my past 10 years at Colfax. I think people are rediscovering the idea of talking to each other and socializing face to face now that the worst of the COVID years are behind us. Our library is small, but we've made changes inside so it feels more spacious and we can offer more seating. And a lot of that had to do with the Women's Giving Circle giving us a wonderful grant for just that. But we remain committed to our elevator project and vision of expanding the size of our library as more physical space in the building becomes accessible. There are currently unused basement and upstairs areas that we would love to branch out into for programming. In 2023, we raised another $20,000 for this expansion project, mostly through small donation. We have over $143,000 saved. It's our intention to apply for a community development block grant, but we're attempting to raise as much of the matching funds portion of the grant as possible to help the municipality out. Colfax Public Library appreciates our partnership with Dunn County and are grateful for your continued support.
And your PowerPoint is up. Is there anything that you wanted to share?
Oh. Well, these are just some pictures from our programming, and I do make the point on the bottom there that our summer reading program has gotten so big, we have to meet at the fairgrounds. And, you know, that's a wonderful problem to have, but we definitely are ready for more space in our building.
Okay, I guess I'm next. Hello, I'm Jolene Stirk. I'm the director of the Menominee Public Library, and I think Andrew was the one that was kind enough to pass around our 2023 annual report, or some little highlights of it. And we too have seen an uptick in people coming through the doors, and it's just wonderful to see. You are getting a hot off the press look at what's coming to the performance venue this summer for our Music Over Menomin 14th or 15th season. So all of the bands have been listed. Lots of kids interacting with Legos and fun things. I'm just picking over Chris's shoulders so she can just fling it. Go ahead and slide to the next one. Oh, sorry, you're not doing the sliding. Okay. We're also celebrating 10 years of service at the Elkmont branch, which is really wonderful. And we're deeply committed to making sure that people in the county itself have library service, not just the ones that live within the city limits. Okay, when's that next magical moment happening?
Like this, and then it happened.
Okay. You have likely seen some press on our outdoor project. We have secured $250,000, thanks in large part to a generous donation from Mayo Clinic. But we're going to be working to improve our
outdoor space, which is phase one of this multi-phase project. And it may seem a little funny to encourage people to be outside on Lake Monoman in the summer, but we're hoping to hold the aroma at bay. And I guess the only other thing that I would say to you, it's a public health concern. It's a concern for all of us, really. I saw this in our most recent publication of Library Journal, talking about the role that public libraries play in combating one of the biggest public health issues of our time, which is social isolation and loneliness. And I did a little bit of a deep dive to see what the Surgeon General had to say about all of this. And he had some really interesting health indicators, like the physical health consequences of poor or insufficient connection include a 29% increased risk of heart disease, a 32% increased risk of stroke, and a 50% increased risk of developing dementia for older adults. So additionally, lacking social connection increases risk of premature death by more than 50%. So if we can do anything to alleviate some of these markers in an unhealthy community, we certainly want to play a part in helping out on that front. And it's been a pleasure to partner with Dunn County Public Health and do what we can to keep everybody healthy. So thank you for your time.
Shall
I like to think we saved the best for last, not just the farthest down the alphabet. So first, I wanted to thank you all for your funding for our library. We too have had an uptake in our people coming through the door. There's a couple statistics that just kind of blow my mind. I know we're small and it doesn't mean a whole lot, my numbers compared to the ladies behind me, but you got to remember that we are a mile from Barron County, a mile from Chippewa County, and we're about 25 miles from Menominee. So we're kind of up in the corner of nowhere. We have had 1,213 website visits, which is up. 3,448 library visits. That just kind of was impressive to me. That breaks down to about 287 people coming in the door per month. We are open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 to 5, and Saturday from 9 to noon. So it does get busy at times in there. We've had 1,507 electronic materials checked out. And most impressive, we had 1,648 uses of our public Wi-Fi. We have people sometimes sitting in the parking lot or in the grass around the building using that Wi-Fi. Couple of the things that we have done with money and our time this year, we have just since the first, well, this year we have partnered with Mayo Clinic, who received a grant from the UW. And we have been hosting an exercise program called Strong Bones or Strong Bodies. We have an average between 12 to 21 people coming in twice a week in our building. We have room to set up chairs and we all exercise for an hour. That has helped build our community, and I see it demonstrated by the way that we communicate in this class, but also outside. We had someone who had been attending regularly missed one session, and I think she had 3 or 4 people texting her, "Are you okay? You know, we missed you today. What happened?" kind of thing. So that's been really great. Just kind of looking out more for each other. Last year, our summer library program did something that was brand new to us. We also, in combination with having in-person programs, we had an online program. And it was through Page Turner Adventures. They are from, I believe, Florida. So they had books online that the kids could read along with. They could read themselves. They also had some activities to go along with the books. So for that program, our online attendance had 196 sessions. Each session lasted almost 12 minutes. So there was that time when everybody was listening and watching the books. Our in-person program, we met 9 times. We had a total of 120 for an attendance, which it has not been that high, at least since I've been director, which is going on 5 years. But we had a great time. The last day was a field day where we went outside. We had games set up. They played volleyball, pool noodle volleyball, with a balloon and a pool noodle and a piece of string across the back of 2 chairs. They had fun. They had water balloons, which they got me with. But they had a good time. Everybody walked away with a prize. Everybody felt just like they had learned a lot and were welcomed. And that's the picture that's up there right now. Some of our kids. We did a butterfly release, which is something that was brand new also. So in the library for about a week and a half to 2 weeks, we had butterflies. We ordered them online. They came as caterpillars. We had them set up. They could come in and watch whichever stage they were at. And then on the last day, we had 18 people go with me, truck out of town, and release them in a prairie that's owned by the previous library director. So they had a ball with that, and we got lots of cool pictures. Down in the bottom corner over here are some of our painted ladies. And we had every one of our cocoons hatched. So that was pretty impressive. Knitters and Crafters is a group that's just been going on this last year. We've met 31 times and had 166 people for attendance. That's an adult only. So far, it's only been female, but we have a good time. And you don't have to knit, but if you want to learn to knit, learn to crochet, work on another craft, come and visit, that's the place to do it. Our Ride with Santa program had 110 for attendance. That's where we have Santa who comes and talks with the kids. We have horses and a wagon ride. So they go on a ride, little ride through town. And of course, we have food and drinks and cookies. And the library gave out kind of like grab and go craft bags for the kids this year. So something coming up is that I'm excited about is a sourdough program. So March 16th, we have one of our moms in town who has been doing sourdough. She's agreed to come in and teach us how to do it. So you come into this session, you will leave with a taste of different variety of things that she makes with her sourdough and a bunch of recipes, instructions how to use it. And you'll also leave with a starter. So you don't have to start from scratch. You could bake with it the next day if you wanted to. So that's pretty cool. And then we have an eclipse coming up in April that we will be doing some programming about. And eclipse glasses are on their way. So, and our Ride with Santa, the snowball fight has been a tradition ever since I remember. Every year we have to set up 2 tables on their side and I have to crumple up paper. And that's their snowball fight. And this year we actually had a gate crasher. The Grinch made an appearance. And he had a snowball fight with the kids and visited and played around. I know who it is, but nobody else really knows. It was not planned, but it worked perfectly. So again, thank you for letting us do the things that we've been doing.
Any questions for the libraries? Supervisor Lino.
No questions, but thank you so much for your service to the communities.
Well, seconding that, and you are now off the hook.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Circuit Court.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Katie Shalley, and I'm the clerk of court in Dunn County. My written report was attached with your packet this evening. I'm just going to highlight a couple areas from the written report. 2023 was a good year for the courts. Our numbers were very comparable to 2022 as far as case filings went and jury trials. We still continue to use Zoom for most court hearings. Individuals are still welcome to come into the courtroom and appear in person. The clerk of court's office, we had 3 new staff members. So 2023 was a big year of learning changes and training new staff, but things are going really, really well at this point. I feel like they're trained in and they're great additions to our team. As far as our 2023 budget goes, we're going to end up turning over around $40,000 back to the county general fund. So I was happy to hear that. We do have 2 line items that we're closely monitoring. So court-appointed attorney fees and our interpreter expenditures have been increasing the last couple of years. The judges and I are monitoring our court-appointed attorneys. So for an individual that is appointed an attorney by the circuit courts, we ask that the defendants repay the courts back. We've been having instances where they're not paying the courts back in a timely manner. So we're monitoring those and making sure that they're being held accountable. And we're also having an increase of interpreter usage in Dunn County. 2023 was our highest year of interpreters. We had over 200 plus instances where we needed an interpreter for a court, and over 19 different languages were used for interpreters. We're seeing a lot of individuals that are receiving citations and cases from the State Patrol. So they're operating a commercial motor vehicle without a valid license. They're not local individuals, therefore we are needing to have an interpreter for those court appearances for them. One exciting project that we're taking on in the clerk of court's office in 2024 is we're starting to purge court files. We have not done this in 10 plus years. So once the file reaches its retention period timeframe, we're able to destroy it electronically on CCAP, and then the paper version as well gets to be destroyed. As part of our report every year, the county manager asks each department head to kind of highlight one area, a project or something from each department. And every year I struggle going, we're not like a project driven service that we provide. So Chris Corporal had actually asked that I do a segment on what the courts are like in Dunn County. So by show of hands, how many of you have been in the courtrooms in the Judicial Center? Oh, so good. Okay, a fair amount of individuals have been. So for those that have not been, this is what the average courtroom looks like. We have 4 courtrooms. So you can see that there's a counsel tables on the table on the picture on the right-hand side. And then the picture on the left depicts where the court reporter would sit right in front of the judge. The witness stand is to the left, and then the workstation to the right-hand side of where the judge would be seated, that is where the clerk sits. So my staff would be the deputy clerks of court. They're seated in the courtroom. So they take minutes, it's a brief synopsis of what happens in court. So when people hear of the word CCAP or the Wisconsin Circuit Court Access, where you look somebody's name up to see if they have a court case, what we enter in our system database is CCAP. So when you see a readout of what was entered in from a court hearing, that is what the staff are doing. The next picture here shows the counsel or the expert witness table or witness table, and then the jury boxes as well. I thought it would be fun this year to show what each judge, a picture of the judge with their support staff. So this is Judge Peterson, our branch 1 judge, with Joey, his judicial assistant. His court reporter right now is on maternity leave, so she was not able to make the photo op. Branch 2, Judge Meyer with her judicial assistant Jake and her court reporter Olivia. And then the fun thing about the Branch 2 courtroom is there's gorgeous quilts in there, so we thought we would showcase them this evening. We have Branch 3 with Judge Wagner and his judicial assistant Liz and court reporter Andrea. And then we also have our hearing room. This room is used for our jury orientation check-in. We do scheduling conferences in the room, and the judges also conduct weddings in the room as well. Are there any questions? I feel like I talked very fast. It was a very brief report.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, we have several. Supervisor Larry Bjork.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Katie, if you guys wouldn't be doing a good job, I'd be hearing about it a lot.
Yes.
And I hear that you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
You made an interesting comment about the commercial drivers not having a clue of what they're supposed to be doing legally or not legally in the interstates and Dunn County. And I would just give you a heads up on what I hear from an attorney that works in St. Croix County a lot. And I don't mean to come down on any group of people or at all, but they have tremendous spike in alcohol related incidents and driving their personal vehicles with no idea what the laws and rules and regulations are for driving a vehicle. And the last story told to me was about an individual that was lights went on, the squad cars in town, and he didn't stop, ended up being out on the highway. And then when he finally stopped and the state patrol officer approached the car, the response was, well, I didn't know I was supposed to stop. Well, fine. He didn't know he was supposed to stop. And on the way, the state patrol officer back to his squad, the car took off because actually, he stopped as he was supposed to, but he didn't know he was supposed to stay stopped. So, first of all, we got to try to help people know what to do. And secondly, if it's going to be a big cost to the court in Dunn County, as it's becoming that I'm hearing in St. Croix County, I'd like you to track it for us, please.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, judges, for the hard work they do. And, Dunn County spent a long time getting Branch 3, and I think we've done quite well.
Yes, I
in
agree.
Branch 3 and with the other ones.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you, Supervisor Bjork. Supervisor Lee now.
Yes, I've got one quick question. Basically, I see the number one thing on the list here when we're talking about revenue collected and distributed is funds held in trust. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, yep. So some of those funds that are held in trust would be from case filings where the case is not actually complete. So it might be a foreclosure sale or a foreclosure case where we're waiting for the court order to be finalized of the confirmation of sale hearing to go forward. So does that kind of answer a little bit?
So in other words, if there's some court ordered judgment, those monies are held in trust by the county then?
On certain actions. So in the scenario of a foreclosure action, the court there'll be a sheriff's sale that will take place. The successful bidder is to pay a certain percentage of the funds, and the clerk of court's office holds that. Once there's a confirmation of sale hearing, then the court will issue an order, and the successful bidder is to pay the rest of the amount due. Once we receive those funds, we will then cut the rest of the money back to who the money is owed to, essentially. So there is some times where we have money just sitting in trust and it will then go out to whoever it is ordered to.
Okay, so essentially $400,000 is in process then in a
Correct.
normal year?
Yes.
Is this money being held strictly in a checking account or is this in some type of investment?
We have it in our checking account, and we do have a money market account at Dairy State Bank for the clerk of court's office.
Okay.
Some of the other funds that are held would be for cash bonds as well. So if an individual is ordered to pay the courts a cash bond, we will hold that money until the pendency of the case. So a couple weeks ago, we had a $10,000 cash bond. We receive that money and we'll hold it until the case is closed. So every year the funds can go up and down depending on what type of court cases are, on the docket for the calendar.
Okay. Well, thank you. I just, I saw the trust funds and I went, okay, for who and for what?
Yep, or attorney fees and guardian ad litem fees as well. That's another area where we're seeing that they're ordered to pay that until we get a bill that comes in, the money sits in our checking account and then will be dispersed accordingly.
And then what happens to the interest on this checking account?
The interest goes back to the county. So
Goes back to
every
the
month,
county.
yep, every month we report that and the county gets that interest back as income.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Supervisor Lena. Supervisor Vandermeulen.
Artificial intelligence is getting really good at translation. Do you foresee using that instead of some of your translators?
This has been talked about at the state level. At this point, it's not allowable for the courts to use the artificial intelligence for our interpreters. Interpreters do need to be state certified, and it is actually very strict, stringent certification requirements for the interpreters. So we get reimbursement based upon the certification level of the interpreter. For example, the Hmong language, there are actually no state of Wisconsin Hmong interpreters that are qualified by the state of Wisconsin. So for any hearing that we have with a Hmong interpreter, we're not getting the full state reimbursement rate just because they have not taken all the certification requirements that the state of Wisconsin requires for court hearings. But at this point, the Director of State Court's office is not wanting to do the artificial intelligence for any interpretation or translations at this point.
Anyone else?
Yes, so we have two judges here this evening, Judge Meyer and Judge Wagner. So our branch 2 and branch 3 judge, they're in the back. They said they would come up if they needed to, but they were fine being seated in the back.
And may I say, it's great to see you up and around, Judge Meyer.
Yeah, perfect. If there's nothing else, I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. All right. Consideration of reports, resolutions, and ordinances to the county board from the executive committee. Item A, resolution for assistant county manager, second reading. The motion is on the floor from last time around. Any speaking to the resolution? Any questions? All right, seeing none, I guess we are ready to vote. All in favor of the resolution? Oh, Monica, did you have a? No, I'm sorry. Okay. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 11. Consideration of reports, resolutions, and ordinances coming to the county board from the standing committees. IA, Committee on Administration, resolution elected officials compensation. I need a motion for that in a second. Supervisor Headland moves. Supervisor Morehouse seconds. Speaking to the motion, Vaughn, is that you? Is it Jenna?
I was going to say, if it is okay with everyone else, I would like to have Jenna come up. They did a lot of work and a lot of background work on this for us before they presented it to the committee.
All righty, come on up.
My mic is on.
Just take a brief moment while it did put together a PowerPoint. You're probably not surprised to hear that.
Organization is good.
A lot of the information in the PowerPoint is in your packet, but just kind of wanted to highlight those pieces and talk through them.
Anyone buy 50 cal?
There we go.
I do, yeah. Okay, thanks for your patience. There we go. Okay, so just to provide some brief background information, the county clerk, treasurer, and register of deeds elected official roles will run for election in 2024 for the term of 2025 through 2028. Those offices hold a 4-year term. So Wisconsin statute 59.22 requires the county board to establish compensation for these elected officials before nomination papers can be filed. Therefore, the compensation for the term of 2025 through 2028 needs to be set prior to April 2024, which is when the nomination papers can start to be filed for the upcoming election. The county clerk, treasurer, and register of deeds elected officials do serve as department heads within the county. They are responsible for all of the managerial duties within each of their departments. And in addition to the management roles, of course, required to carry out the statutorily required duties. They are eligible for some of the benefits that other county employees receive, including the Wisconsin retirement system. And to make a note there, with any employee involved in the WRS system, they are vested after 5 years of employment, and the term for elected officials is 4 years. So of course, not always guaranteed that someone in the role, if they only serve 1 term, would be fully vested with that benefit if they do not get reelected. They are offered health and dental benefits consistent with other employees at the county. However, they do not accrue vacation and sick leave benefits like other full-time employees do. Any questions before I move on?
Not seeing any.
Okay. So now I'm going to provide some of the information that was analyzed in arriving at the proposal that you have before you tonight. So I'm going to start by providing comparable information. This is a graph, and this is also included in your packet, that outlines the other counties that are similar in population size. So Dunn County is ranked as the 32nd county by population in the state of Wisconsin. And the first table represents a salary comparison with counties that are similar in population and size. So we have Barron, Douglas, and Greene County. The highlighted row represents Dunn County. And from 2021 to 2024 represents the elected official salaries that were set for that term. You can see that Dunn County is below the other counties that were identified as similar in population size. The graph below represents 2 Wisconsin counties that are a much lower population that are currently compensated higher than our county elected official positions. And that's Richland and Green Lake. Not nearby by any means, but that was information that was analyzed in the discussion. The next thing we looked at was comparable counties by location. So this represents salaries for the 3 elected official positions in the counties that are geographically surrounding us. That includes Barron County, Chippewa County, Eau Claire, and St. Croix. And you can see that Dunn County does also sit at the lowest with the salary level within the geographic area as well. I will note that we're in the process of setting the rates for the next term, and so is every other county in the state. So it's difficult to project exactly where everyone else will land, but this represents the current term. Any questions on the comparable counties and the rates that are provided?
Supervisor Gary Bjork.
Chair. For me, it'd be a lot easier if you would put the numbers for Dunn County for 2024 at the rate that the raise is supposed to go up. I mean, compared, even though we don't know what the other counties will do for the near term, it'd be nice to see how we would be compared to the other counties at the rate that you want to present to us, the increased.
Sure. With comparison to 2024?
Well, I mean, that's the, like the last year, like available.
Sure.
So I'd like to see if the sheriff like went up $20,000, how would that compare then to the other counties?
Okay, I do have a few more slides that hopefully will kind of help connect that. And then the last slide of the presentation, I do have outlined the proposed rates, so we can bounce back and forth if needed.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so another factor that was considered in the process was looking at comparable internal positions within Dunn County that are considered similar with regard to management level and skills and responsibilities. So I know it's really small, but I have a snip of our pay grid here. And this is pay grade P, which consists of several of the department head positions and also division head manager positions here at the county. So the midpoint of grade P, which is step 6, I have that kind of circled here with that green square, circled with a square. That makes sense, huh? And the midpoint represents really the standard for each grade as far as how the pay grid is built. The midpoint is kind of based as the standard market rate for those applicable positions. So on the 2024 pay grade P, step 6 is currently $90,709 for this year. And then just as a comparison for the current rate of the 3 elected official positions in 2024, they are currently compensated at $72,422. So we do see quite a discrepancy between those 3 elected official positions and where other similar internal positions sit within the county. We do also have information provided with regard to the other 2 elected official positions in the county, the clerk of court and the sheriff. So those salary terms are set on 2 years prior to the compared to the term that we are discussing today. So in 2022, for the term of 2023 to 2026, the clerk of court and the sheriff compensation rates were set, and you can see the rates for 2023 to 2026 in the table. And just to highlight, that was provided within the report, an 18.65% increase for the clerk of court and a 20.68% increase for the sheriff. There's a lot of numbers here, but I promise I'll keep this brief. So this here is a table of basically a 10-year look back for all of our elected official positions here at Dunn County. And just wanted to point out that in 2022 and consistently in preceding years, the difference between the clerk of court's elected official and the county clerk, treasurer, and register of deeds was in 2022 sitting at about 2,000. Now in 2024, there is a difference of 16,500 between the two. So that was a factor as well in the proposal that has been provided from the 3 elected officials. Any questions on this? Okay. So lastly, just kind of a highlight of the proposed rates for 2025 include $90,000, 553. So to kind of help with a comparison, I can kind of bounce back to the first few slides. I point it in the right direction. So for the geographical surrounding counties, the 2024 rate is all the way over to the right here. And then compared to that $90,000 request would be kind of what that difference looks like. So a bit of a larger jump in percentage from the current Dunn County rate, but moving along at a smaller margin compared to those other counties. And again, they are also actively in this process for setting the compensation for the next term. So I'll flip back to the last slide. For each following year, the rates that are presented to you today include a 4.75% increase between each year, which is consistently the average that general county employees do see, including cost of living increases and step increases. And that is also consistent with the percentage increase from year to year that was approved with the sheriff and clerk of court salaries. So my hope today was just to provide you with the factual information so that you can ask any questions and come to a decision. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Supervisor Larry Bjork.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got all my questions made out to Nick, so I don't know who the gentleman is in the middle.
Hi, I'm Christian. I'm an assistant corporation counsel. I'm filling in
Okay,
for Nick.
well, this issue has forced me to do something that I've never, ever done before. I actually went to the computer and went to the Wisconsin legislature, chapter 59, what handles, have the information on what we're doing today. And so a couple questions and leading up to this, and I wrote out notes, and I now call the group the CRT. And it sounds like a government program, but that includes CRT, right, Andrew? Okay. So in the statute 5920, it talks about eligibility for county office. And I read it as that eligibility for county office, first of all, you cannot, be a supervisor. So I'm sorry, I'm out of the game, not available. But it all talks about the elector of the county. So number one question on 5920 is the person that we will be hiring after the election this fall for treasurer to be, would they have to be an elector, a county resident?
Yes. Yes, they will need to be a county resident.
Okay. Number two, well, I already did that. 5925, the eligibility, lists supervisors and other county officials as not being eligible for the treasurer's position. But the one thing that I found most disturbing, and really I'm upset, because there are no requirements for financial background to be the county treasurer. Now, in 5925, the eligibility, no, in 5920, in 59.225, it talks about the comptroller. And it says how the comptroller must have certain credibility with experience or I think I'm being drowned out here. Is there a reason, Mr. Chairman?
I have no idea. where
You
this
have
came
no
from.
idea. Okay, I'll take that as your word. Okay, to be serious again, it's disturbing that the county treasurer, as stated here, falls into a management role as a county treasurer. So if I would decide to give up this position and run for the office and am successful to be your new county treasurer, I could then turn to the former treasurer who's working in the office and says, you do all the hard work, I'll do all the talking. Because I would be the manager. I don't have to have any credibility as a financial person. But now on 59.225, it talks about a controller. And their controller has to be a CPA or a doctorate in finance. How the heck do we end up in a position where we have a treasurer instead of a comptroller to be our chief financial officer?
That would be governed by the constitutional officers as laid out in the Wisconsin State Constitution.
Dunn County doesn't have a choice on whether they have a comptroller?
Nope.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I will weigh my options. Let's see, do I have anything else here? Okay. I find it unfortunate that, you know, we have to start out this whole procedure with almost a 20% increase to get caught up. And when I was on the school board, I think the term they used during negotiations was leapfrogging. And one part of your group advances, and then the next part of your group has to advance over that group, and so forth and so far. So we seem to think that we're going to move forward and keep our cost of living the same. But I don't think the senior citizens, as myself, I mean, I'm real happy now that the price of beef is up, but that could change. But I mean, you know, people on fixed incomes, you know, are facing a tighter and tighter budget. And I maybe it's a stretch, but you know, if we keep increasing expenses that we have, you know, we increase people that are under the poverty line. And every program that I've been on in Health and Human Services and ADRC is that those people under the poverty line, you know, we're offering them services. So county goes ahead and raises the cost of doing business, which could put people under the poverty line, and then they have to turn to the county to receive services because they're under the poverty line. So it's, I support the increase in salary. I did not support the increase in growing government and having more people to pay. I think we need to pay our top people a good wage, and I think we're headed in the right direction. It's just that it's a hard pill to swallow when you look at what from today to 2028, in those 4 years, that a person can receive a salary increase of $32,000. I wish you were hiring the treasurer instead of the electorate. I'm done.
Thank you, Supervisor Bjork. Any other speaking to the resolution? Supervisor Kinnear.
Thank you. Jenny did a great job. I just was wondering if Supervisor Headland wanted to say anything or had any comments.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. As I mentioned, we have a good background staff here in HR. We have a tremendous HR department in terms of the work that we pile upon them. And the results are what Jenna just presented to us. it's disturbing that I know the last time around we did this, I was on this committee, and the proposal that came from the county manager was much below what we actually passed. I don't know if it was a distaste for elected officials in the county or what it was, but I had to kind of twist things upward and say we're not even in the ball game in terms of what surrounding counties were doing. We still ended up below, but we got closer. And I think a couple years ago when we did this for our clerk of courts and our sheriff, we realized that we needed to pay more attention to what was going on around us. Our county deserves to have people working for them and doing the important jobs for them that are just as qualified and just as dedicated as our neighboring counties, but we're not going to get them and keep them if we don't at least get into the middle of the ball game. And so our numbers that Jenna presented are not the top numbers. She's said all night long that we're in the game, and that's about it. And we need to be. Our people deserve that. Again, like you said, they could be elected. If there's, contested election, they're going to spend money on campaigning and in promoting themselves. And then even if they elected for 4 years, they may not get reelected, and they still don't get any of that retirement. So it's a tough thing. I wish, like Mr. Bjork said, and I think it's past due that we hire a treasurer, we hire a clerk, and we hire a register of deeds. But until the state statutes are changed, that's not going to happen. So as I can see, we're displeased and we have a legislative agenda. Maybe we should have put a little push on that legislative agenda to make a drastic change in the state of Wisconsin. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Headland. Any other speaking to the motion?
Can I add one comment? Yeah, I just wanted to add one other piece of information. Again, I think Jenna said our goal was just to give you the facts and you ultimately make the decision. So prior to 2012, in the Register of Deeds office, Jim Murdew had been there for 26 years. And then Heather was elected in 2012, and she has been here since. In the county clerk's office over the last decade, Marilyn Hoyt left office when she became ill in 2013 after 6 years. And then we had Julie Watkey for 6 years and had Andrew now since May of 21. And in the treasurer's office, Mary Erpenbach was here for 20 years until 2012. And then we have since had Cindy Kopp, Megan Middlestead, Doris Meyer, and Sophia, and now a vacancy. So we've had 4 treasurers and a vacancy in a 10-year period.
Thanks, Chris. All right, it looks like we are ready to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Oh, 1 no. All right. 11A2, resolution approving collective bargaining agreement 2024-2026. I need a motion in a second. Supervisor Lenow and Supervisor Headland. Speaking to the motion, probably Supervisor Headland as a start.
Again, this is something that's a process. The county manager, the HR department, and so forth get together and work with the members of the power of arrest and their representatives. Of course, so to speak, they have their requests, and we had ours. And they very nicely, I think, got together and worked things out. If you look at the report, there's no real expansion, or no real jump in wages. There's some practical things that were added. Also, our team did a very good job in terms of the county management in negotiating a 3-year deal this time around. And so, you know, passing of this means that we're set for the next 3 years. And that's, you know, we've been bouncing around of just 2-year terms the last few. So I applaud them for doing that. And any questions as to how we actually got there, Jen and Chris I would turn it over to them for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Headland. Any speaking to the resolution? Further speaking? All right, seeing none, we are ready to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 11A3, resolution of continuation of self-insured workers' compensation. Motion in a second. Supervisor Headland and Supervisor Leno. Speaking to the motion, it's you're up again, Supervisor Headland.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the statute of the state of Wisconsin allows us, if we so choose to do, to have our own self-funded workers' compensation program, which we have had for a number of years. I couldn't tell you how many. I don't know if Chris or Jenna know, but it's been a while. Actually, that program for us has been quite successful. We have a third-party management that helps us set the rates so that we collect enough money, put enough money aside to fund this program for our employees. And we also have it isn't called stopgap, but maybe Jenna could tell me what it's actually called. But we have a stopgap type insurance above any major or continuing claims we may encounter. We've been successful enough that we've actually used funds from this to help with our health insurance program and to keep those costs in line. So to me, I think it's the right thing to do, but that's for everybody else to decide. If there's any questions, again, I would turn them over to Jenna. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Headland. Any further speaking to the resolution? All right, seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 11B, Legislative Committee Resolution HSHS Prevea Collaboration. I would need a motion in a second. Supervisor Steen moves, Supervisor Morehouse seconds. Supervisor Steen, do you want to address this or do you want to ask Chris to?
Chair, I would politely ask Chris to address it.
So you have before you a resolution which has been adopted in a number of other Eau Claire, Chippewa counties have already adopted the resolution, as well as a very similar resolution, if not the same, has been proposed in the related municipalities. So the city of Altoona, the city of Eau Claire, I believe the city of Menominee is taking it up. The language is the same in all the resolutions. Essentially, it's a situation with the closing of HSHS and Prevea, which has evolved quickly, as well as changes on a regular basis. At the point in time that we were asked to join in sending the message to HSHS and Prevea, asking them to kind of slow things down and to work with the community partners to provide some continuity for healthcare. They were not necessarily doing that particularly well. Since then, I think things have improved to some degree in terms of their willingness to have conversation. But even so, there's a tremendous impact on the Chippewa Valley by the closing of that facility. And some of that data is included in the resolution. 900 pregnant moms, 100 people who are receiving cancer treatments, 50 people who receive dialysis. who no longer have a local provider or have to reconfigure their services. So it's simply just it carries no weight per se, except our shared community's concern that there be a process to make sure that people are taken care of.
Thank you, Chris. Supervisor Larry Bjork.
From my experience back on Health and Human Services, the great expense to our counties in psychiatric care. And 2 or 3 years ago, we thought that there was money coming to our area of the state, and it did not. And then thought it was 14 million that was supposed to come this year in two institutions that are no longer going to be in business. Do you have any information on where that money for psychiatric care may come? Could it come to help the counties?
Yes, so Senator James authored a bill that asked to move that money to the state building fund, I believe. Anyway, to move the money from where it was to another spot that basically where it was only allowed, it was $15 million. The only way that it could be accessed is if the full legislature voted on releasing it. If this bill asked to move the money to another pot that would be able to be released upon the vote of the Joint Finance Committee. And that is in process if it hasn't been completed. They were working on it late last week, and I haven't tracked it yet this week. But so that the whole goal is to get that money available, that if there's a need that can be met, a kind of a capital need that can be met, that it would be able to be accessed, that money would be able to access to meet that need.
Chris?
Thank you.
I can't speak to that if you'd like.
Without objection? Yeah, come on up.
Senator James, the Senate voted on it on Tuesday. It passed the Senate, moving the 15 million. I'm sorry, I forgot the people there. Moving the 15 million. So it was 15 million is supposed to go to HSHS for 22 new mental health patient beds. That was in the biennial budget. Then Senator Bernier got that through. Obviously, HSHS denied the money. They knew this was coming. We didn't. And so what it went back into the general fund. So Senator James proposed legislation that would move the 15 million into a fund that would allow the Joint Finance Committee to approve grants requested by the Department of Health in Chippewa and Eau Claire counties. So the legislation specifically says those two counties for emergency room capital expenditure, or emergency services capital expenditures. Now, in the state law, capital expenditure and emergency services, neither of them are defined. So a grant application would be made by a service provider in Chippewa or Eau Claire counties to the Department of Health with the state. Joint Finance would then either approve or deny that grant application. That bill passed out of the Senate on Tuesday, and tomorrow the Assembly is taking up the bill to vote on it, and then it would go to the governor's desk for either veto or passage. It's not perfect. It had to be worded the way it was in order to get certain members of the Senate on board with passing it. Much like, I think, shared revenue. It was, nobody was happy with everything, but it was better than nothing. So that's what that bill is and where it stands right now.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Steen.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the correct place for it, but I'm going to do it anyway. My question would be, and perhaps the gentleman that just talked, I think people should pay attention to what's going on in the legislature. At one point here, a couple of years ago, Wisconsin was the lowest state in the union in Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement. Now, I'm sure that plays a factor in the closing of the hospital, as it plays a factor in the closing of our numerous nursing homes around here. So I think that's a question that could be asked of our representatives, I feel, because I'm sure that plays a factor in Sacred Heart and Prevea in their closing. And I know it plays a factor in all the nursing homes that are closing around the area.
I think that probably the perfect venue to take up that particular question would be the legislative committee. Chair of the legislative committee. So if you want to pop it on your next agenda, we can have that discussion.
It's popped.
Great. All right.
Can I just take just a moment?
Sure.
I think that there've been some questions about impact it for the county. So we obviously took a little bit less of a direct hit in county operations than Chippewa and Eau Claire County did, who had a lot of resources that they received from those two facilities. Areas of impact were, as Supervisor Bjork indicated, it did remove mental health bed space from the area, and particularly adolescent mental health bed space. So there is not another spot now short of going to Winnebago for adolescents. And so that will increase law enforcement transportation time and tie up more resources with regard to that. We had a contract with Prevea for occupational therapy and physical therapy services for our Birth to 3 program, which is a mandated program to serve kiddos who are the age of birth to 3 and are either disabled or at risk of a disability. And so we are working through trying to figure out how to fill that gap. And then obviously just, the various impacts of people who have certain kinds of insurances or certain kinds of, or we're seeing a certain provider or receiving a certain specialty care. One of the questions that has come up is regard to morgue services, and that does not impact us because we have a solid working relationship with local funeral homes who keep our deceased bodies, and if they need to be actually autopsied, they're sent to Ramsey County. So, but there are some impacts. There are certainly impacts to organizations like the city and UW Stout, who had a much closer tie to Provea, particularly, and then all of the related spouses and kids and all those sorts of things that get impacted. But those are kind of the most direct impact to county operations.
Thank you, Chris. Any further speaking to the resolution? All right, seeing none, we are going to go ahead and have a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 11C, Planning, Resources and Development Committee, petition for map amendment, rezone, Gretz or Groots Real Estate LLC. I need a motion and a second. Supervisor Quinn, Supervisor Sean Breslin, speaking to the petition.
Yeah, just very briefly. So this is the Jake's Supper Club property. They are planning a significant renovation remodeling project. And it turns out the property is actually in 2 parcels, one of which is zoned shoreline recreational, which is appropriate, and one of which I think is zoned residential. So they're asking that that parcel be rezoned shoreland residential, so they're consistent in their zoning and the construction is legal. And the town board approved it, and the committee asked the county board to approve it also.
Thank you, Supervisor Quinn. Any speaking to the motion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That brings us to the end of item 11 and on to item 12, announcements. All I've got is our next regular county board meeting will be March 20th, 2024 at 7:00 p.m. The clerk has one.
The treats tonight were brought to you by Little Slice of Italy in Colfax. So we're always making sure that we're trying to provide treats from local businesses throughout Dunn County. So I wanted to point that out. It didn't get a sign. On that note, our Sunshine Fund has enough to cover the treats for March, but nothing beyond March. So I'm not asking for money tonight for the Sunshine Fund, but at the next meeting, please bring a contribution for the Sunshine Fund so we can continue to light the way into the future of the Dunn County Board meetings.
Thanks, Andrew. Anything else? Glad to hear it. Supervisor Larry Bjork.
Yeah, reminder for the Watershed Conference and particularly the travel from fairgrounds on the county bus and save your parking ticket money for your grandkids.
Thanks for the reminder, Supervisor Bjork.
Okay, that looks like the end of our announcements. We are adjourned.